In the ancient city of Savatthi, there lived a beautiful young woman named Patachara. Born into a wealthy merchant family, she was treasured by her parents. They showered her with every comfort, but also shielded her from the world, fearful she might fall for someone they deemed unworthy. From the gilded windows of her 7-story palace, Patachara looked out at the world, a princess in a beautiful cage. But as we know, love doesn't follow rules or respect social status. Patachara's heart was captured by a young servant in her own home. Their love was deep, but they knew it was forbidden. Her parents would never approve. Faced with an impossible choice, they chose each other. One moonless night, they fled, leaving behind a life of unimaginable luxury for a simple, humble existence in a small, distant village. They built a new life together, far from the judgment of the city. They worked side by side in the fields, their love blossoming in their newfound freedom. It wasn't long before Patachara was expecting their first child. As the time of birth drew near, a deep longing to be with her mother filled her heart. She pleaded with her husband to return to her parents' home in Savatthi, but he was terrified. He knew that the punishment for eloping with the daughter of a great merchant would be severe, perhaps even death. He refused to go. But Patachara's desire to see her family was too strong. One day, she set off on the long road to Savatthi alone. When her husband discovered she was gone, he couldn't bear to let her face the journey by herself. He rushed after her, catching up just as the pains of labor began. There, on the side of the road, with no one but her husband to help her, Patachara gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Seeing their newborn son, all their disagreements melted away. Their journey to Savatthi was forgotten, and they returned to their small cottage, their little family now complete. Life went on, and soon Patachara was pregnant with her second child. Once again, as her due date approached, the same powerful urge to give birth in her parents' home arose. This time, her husband agreed to make the journey with her and their young son. They packed their few belongings and set out for Savatthi, but fate had a cruel twist in store for them. Halfway through their journey, the sky turned black. A ferocious storm broke out, with howling winds and torrential rain. Desperate to find shelter, Patachara's husband told her to wait with their son while he went into the nearby woods to cut some branches for a makeshift cover. He ventured into the dark, rain-soaked forest, searching for suitable wood. As he was chopping at a bush, a venomous snake, disturbed by the storm, struck him. The poison was swift and deadly. He collapsed and died right there, alone in the storm. Patachara waited and waited, shivering in the cold. The storm raged on, and her labor pains grew stronger. With no one to help her, exposed to the elements, she gave birth to her second son that night, alone in the terrifying darkness. All night she huddled with her newborn and her toddler, calling out for her husband, but only the sound of thunder answered. When dawn finally broke, she saw a path leading into the woods. She placed her newborn baby on the ground and followed the path, calling her husband's name. It wasn't long before she found him lying cold and lifeless. The sight broke her heart. Now a widow with two small children, she had no choice but to continue her journey to Savathi, hoping to find refuge with her parents. She arrived at the bank of a river, which was swollen and raging from the storm. It was too dangerous to carry both children across at once. So she left her older son on the near bank, telling him to wait for her. Cradling her fragile newborn, she waded through the treacherous currents to the other side. She gently placed the baby on a cloth and turned to go back for her firstborn. Just as she was in the middle of the river, a large hawk swooped down from the sky. Mistaking the baby for a piece of meat, it snatched him in its talons and flew away. Patachara screamed in horror and disbelief. She waved her arms frantically, shouting at the bird. Her older son, on the other bank, heard her cries and saw her waving. Thinking she was calling for him to cross, he stepped into the rushing water. The powerful current immediately swept him away, and he disappeared beneath the waves. In a matter of moments, both her children were gone. Her husband, her newborn, her first son all lost. The world seemed to collapse around her, dazed and consumed by a grief so profound it shattered her mind. She stumbled onward toward Savathi. When she finally reached the outskirts of the city, she saw a man walking toward her. Through her tears, she asked him if he knew the way to the house of the great merchant, her father. The man looked at her with pity. "Don't you know," he said gently, "the terrible storm last night? It brought the merchant's house crashing to the ground. The entire family, the merchant, his wife, and their son, they were all buried in the rubble. They are all gone. This final blow was too much to bear. Her husband, her children, her parents, her brother, her entire world had been annihilated in a single day." Her mind snapped. Overwhelmed by unbearable sorrow, she tore at her clothes and her hair, wandering naked through the streets of Savathi. She was a ghost of her former self, wailing, screaming, lost in a world of madness. People laughed at her, mocked her, threw stones, and called her the mad woman. She didn't even notice. For days she roamed like this, a vessel of pure suffering. One day, her aimless wandering led her to the Jetavana monastery, where the Buddha was giving a teaching to a large crowd. But the Buddha stopped them. "Let her come," he said, his voice filled with compassion. "Do not prevent her." Patachara made her way through the crowd until she stood before the Enlightened One. He looked at her not with judgment or disgust, but with profound kindness. Then he spoke to her softly, his voice cutting through the fog of her madness. "Sister," he said, "regain your mindfulness. Be aware." At the sound of his calm, compassionate voice, something inside her shifted. It was as if she was waking from a long and terrible nightmare. She knelt before the Buddha, the story of her unimaginable losses pouring out of her in a torrent of tears. When she had finished, the Buddha spoke again. He didn't offer empty platitudes or false comfort. Instead, he offered her the truth. "Patachara," he said, "you think you have shed many tears for your family. But in the long journey of countless lifetimes, the tears you have shed for the loss of loved ones would be more than the water in all the great oceans. All things that are born are subject to decay and death. Life is like a river, always flowing, never standing still. Sorrow comes from clinging to what is impermanent. As she listened to these words, a profound understanding dawned within her. For the first time, she saw the true nature of suffering, that it arises from attachment and ignorance of life's impermanence. In that moment of crystal clarity, Patachara attained the first stage of enlightenment. She asked to be ordained, and she became a bhikkhuni, a Buddhist nun. She devoted herself to meditation and the study of the Buddha's teachings. Through her diligent practice, she eventually overcame all suffering and attained Arahatship, complete liberation. The Buddha later declared her the foremost among all his female disciples in the mastery of monastic discipline. The woman who had lost everything, who had been driven mad by grief, had found ultimate peace and wisdom. Her story teaches us that no matter how deep our suffering, no matter how great our loss, the path to peace is always available through understanding the truth. As Patachara herself later said, "My mind was once washed away by tears. But now, having seen the way, I have uprooted all craving, and I dwell in perfect peace." Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of wisdom and transformation.